Hey everyone, so this is a very quick introduction to the Bubble editor. This is for anyone who's never used Bubble at all. If you've used Bubble before, then this will be a very boring video. But I'm just basically going to go through the different elements in the editor and how it all fits together as a high level overview. So firstly, this is your design view. So this is where you're actually adding elements onto your page. You can do different types of layouts. This is currently fixed layout, but for example, you might want to do a column layout where you're stacking items on top of each other, which would probably be a common way to build a page out. So we can build things by, for example, taking an input and a button, and we can highlight both of those, group those elements in a row container, and then we can look at these over at the side. This is the elements tree. It shows you all elements that are on the page. We can just rearrange those items. So put the input first. And these are grouped together in this group called Group A. We could change this to being called whatever we want. Call it Group Form. We can add a little bit of spacing between elements. So say 7 pixels. We can make this fit to the width of the content, can centralize that in the page. We can maybe add a little bit of margin at the top as well. And there you have a very basic form. We can call that button submit. You can change all the colors, etc., including hovers and things like that. I'll go into that in another video. Now that's a very basic form that we've got here. So the next part is the workflow tab. So what we can do, this is where you actually create the programming for the elements on your page and any other actions that are running. So we can start a new workflow. Basically, you can imagine this as a trigger and action scenario. So your trigger is something like the user is logged in, page is loaded. More often than not, you're going to be using something like a specific element is clicked. So when someone's clicking a button, it's running a workflow, such as logging a user in or some other action. We can also do this directly from the design view. So if we go onto the submit button, highlight that, we can see that selected there. We can click start edit workflow, and it creates a workflow with the trigger of when the button submit is clicked. Then we can start to add some actions. So there's all kinds of actions you can add. You can go to a different page, you can sign users up, send emails, take payments, etc. So in this case, we could sign the user up. We'll take the email from the input, which we say inputs value, and password. For now, we can just hard code that as the word password, which is something that you would never do in a real app. And then you could also add a second action to that. So we could say go to page, and then we could direct them to another page in the application. So we don't have any other pages at the moment, but there's a simple workflow. That's button submit, the user signed up, and then you navigate them to another page. So that's the workflow tab. Then the data tab, this is where we store actual data. So you have databases in Bubble where you might have users or other types of users exists by default, but you can create your own data type. So for example, say you're building a job board, we would have a type called jobs. We can then create some fields on those, such as job title, and there'd be a text field, job description, text field, salary. You can make that a numeric range or just a number. And we'll do a application URL, which we also just store as text. So that's now created a database of jobs. We can see these databases here. So we have a users database and a jobs database. So what you could have is you could have create a form where when the form is submitted, it creates a job in the database. And then you would be able to display all those jobs on another page using a feature called repeating groups, which is something I'll go into in a separate video. Two more things to show you. The styles tab is universal styles. So you can set a style for your button. So for example, the button that we created there, we can make a universal style black button with rounded corners, and that will be a universal style now. So everywhere in your app that changes, and you can do this for text, you can do this for all kinds of inputs, checkboxes, etc. And then finally, plugins. You can extend the use of your app by installing plugins. So for example, you might want to connect Stripe for payments. You can install that, and this just adds additional functionality to your app. But there's already a lot you can do out the box with Bubble without even having to install any plugins. So that's a basic overview. The settings and logs are your app settings and logs, which you can look at once your app is actually deployed. But we will look at those in another video. Thank you.